day 311 of the war in Gaza with no sign of a potential ceasefire yet in sight. Israel remains determined to prevent Hamas from returning to areas that had been captured by Israel in earlier stages of the war. The cross-border exchanges on the northern border continue, but still no sign of Hezbollah's vowed retaliation for the assassination of Hezbollah commander Fuad Shukr in Beirut. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The IDF returned to Khan Yunis after displaced Gazans were ordered to flee part of the designated evacuation area. The IDF launched a campaign based on intelligence determining that Hamas had re-established a presence in Hamad City, an upscale residential complex in Khan Yunis. There were also clashes in the Rafah area near the Egypt-Gaza border. The IDF eliminated a terror squad that came out of a tunnel shaft. Soldiers from the 98th Division also attacked areas from where rockets were fired toward Israel. The IDF announced that 19-year-old paratrooper Sergeant Omer Ginsberg from Tivon was killed during fighting in Rafah. In the north, some 30 projectiles were fired into northern Israel. Most landed in open areas, and there were no reports of casualties. IDF forces attacked the sources of the fire with artillery. Earlier, the IDF eliminated a Hezbollah cell in a drone strike in Taiba in South Lebanon. The IDF also hit Hezbollah buildings in Kafar Kila and Al-Jibin in South Lebanon. Earlier, jets attacked a military structure in the Dardana region. At the end of the attack, secondary explosions were identified, indicating the presence of munitions in the building. Defense Minister Gallant told combat troops that Israel will operate in ways it has never operated before if it's attacked in an unprecedented way by Iran and Hezbollah. Gallant said, "We have significant capabilities. I hope they take this into account and don't bring about a war on additional fronts." Gallant said Israel is fighting for its existence in a hostile environment. He also told them it's a challenging and significant point in history.
The U.S. is pressing forward with the hostage for ceasefire agreement and stressing that Thursday's renewal of mediated talks in Cairo between Israel and Hamas could yield an agreement by the week's end. President Biden stressed that the potential agreement would help prevent the widening of the conflict into a regional war. At the same time, Hamas is sending signs that it may not be open to renewed mediation. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the report.
President Biden says a hostage for ceasefire deal is possible and within reach. Biden tied the potential agreement to efforts to prevent regional war, hinting that a ceasefire deal in Gaza would calm the rest of the region.
Is a ceasefire possible before the end of your term?
Yes, still possible. The plan I put together, endorsed by the G7, endorsed by the UN Security Council, etc., is still viable. And I'm working literally every single day and my whole team to see to it that it doesn't escalate into a regional war, but it easily can.
Biden in May presented an Israeli proposed hostage deal outline, but it has yet to produce a final agreement. Mediated talks on an agreement are set to resume on Thursday in Cairo. Hamas today announced that it would not take part in the new round of talks, saying that the plan must be based on past talks and the agreement presented in May without new elements. Nevertheless, Israeli security sources reportedly believe that negotiators can finalize an agreement and that a deal could be put into action within days. They also say there are gaps to be closed, and reaching an agreement will depend on whether Prime Minister Netanyahu and Hamas chief Sinwar are prepared to show the flexibility needed. Qatari mediators gave a document containing clarifications from Israel on several disputed issues ahead of the talks. According to Qatar, Hamas will be represented at the summit, and therefore it will be possible for the mediators to shuttle between the sides.
Tonight begins Tisha B'Av, a time when we reflect on the destruction of the temple. In light of the tragic events of October 7th, Tzoha has launched a unique project. They've reinterpreted the traditional kinot, linking them to this year's events, including, of course, the massacre and the ongoing hostage situation. Joining us in studio is Rabbi David Stav, who played a key role in writing these new keynotes and can discuss the significance of Tisha B'Av in today's world. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to start by asking you about the significance of Tisha B'Av in general and what the tragic situation we find ourselves in today, how it connects to the story of Tisha B'Av.
I think it's connected to the ancient Tisha B'Av in two levels. One level is the understanding that the same source, the same root of Jews fighting one another in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago led to the Romans to be able to destroy the temple and to destroy the walls of Jerusalem. And the same thing occurs to us. If we will continue to fight one another, if we'll continue to hate one another, we will not be able to survive and to stand against our external enemies. That's, I think, one lesson that is connecting us directly to the ancient, to the traditional Tisha B'Av. But I think there is even a deeper meaning to that connection. Basically, people could have thought that here we have a conflict, between two sides that debate about a territory, a political conflict. This year, we all know that the conflict is not about territories. There is no reason to burn babies, to rape women, to take so many innocent hostages, to take peace activists, to murder them. It's not because of a political conflict. It's a very deep anti-Semitic conflict that exists between Jews and those who are enemies of the Jewish nation, of the Jewish mission in the world. We are supposed to be a source of bless, and we want to be a source of bless to all nations. And there are those who want to be evil and behave like evil people.
Unfortunately, you are absolutely correct. I mean, you and your team, you've written updated keynote, which of course are the elegies that we read on Tisha B'Av each year to keep us in a solemn mood for the significance of this day. Can you tell me more about these keynotes and why you felt it was necessary?
Well, first of all, I must confess, it's unbelievable to see that there are more than 25 lamentations that were written in the last couple of months. We have picked one, maybe the first one, that was written by Yagel Arush, has also a melody, and it's called The Lamentation of Be'eri. Although Be'eri is only one of the kibbutzim that were attacked and more than 100 people were killed there, but it's not only, Be'eri means in Hebrew, my well. The well could be a source of water, could be a source of something that so many people could enjoy. And all of a sudden became a source of sadness and crying. And we have chosen this, and we feel that the people react to that and respond to that in such a moving and exciting way. People feel that today we need to express our pain, and that's the way to express this pain.
Now, for our viewers abroad, how can these keynotes help connect them to the people in Israel and the state of Israel?
I think that to read, to cry together with us, when we will read tonight and tomorrow the lamentations, the keynote of Tisha B'Av. But we don't want only to cry. We want to share also the hope. We believe in the future of the Jewish people, in the future of the state of Israel. And to each lamentation, we added a commentary, a small or two comments that gives a relevant interpretation and connect us with the ancient cry and with the future hope that we hope to succeed and to achieve soon.
All right, we are out of time, but I want to thank you so much for joining us today and for the work that you guys have put in for this. I'm wishing you a meaningful fast for Tisha B'Av and appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Following the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Iran, the Israeli government has been anticipating a major strike on Israel directly from Iranian soil, as promised by the Ayatollah Khamenei himself. But after a lengthy waiting game and intense pressure from the West, some experts believed the regime had opted not to immediately launch an attack. Now, however, reports indicate an imminent attack. Let's take a look. Following the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the Islamic regime in Iran stated explicitly that they would attack Israel directly for the second time this year, despite the fact Israel has not claimed responsibility for the assassination. While internal debate in Iran, the Olympics, and international pressure has perhaps delayed the attack, current assessments from Israel are that this attack is expected in the next few days, possibly even before the return to hostage for ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas, which are set to begin on Thursday. Since Friday, the IRGC has been conducting military drills in western Iran that are set to end today. A strike by the Islamic Republic is likely to involve ballistic missiles and UAVs and will last several days, according to the regime. Israel also anticipates involvement from proxy groups of the regime, such as the Houthis in Yemen and Hezbollah in Lebanon. On Sunday, Israel Defense Minister Yoav Gallant spoke with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who informed him that Iran's drills indicate intent to carry out a large-scale attack on Israel and assured Israel that the U.S. will take every possible step to defend Israel. In response to the threat, the United States has also deployed the USS Georgia guided missile submarine over the Middle East, as well as the Abraham Lincoln Strike Group. Despite the new information, the IDF stated that there are no changes to the emergency guidelines for civilians, and the IDF is prepared to defend Israel however necessary. Well, an intense manhunt is underway for the terrorist cell responsible for the shooting attack in the Jordan Valley, which claimed the life of a 23-year-old. More in the following report.
The attackers opened fire on passing Israeli vehicles on the major Route 90 highway on the Jordan Valley Road near Kibbutz Mechola. An Israeli civilian was killed and another was severely wounded as shots came from two different locations before the terrorist fled by car into Samaria. The victim was identified as 23-year-old Yonatan Deutsch from Beit She'an. Deutsch was engaged to be married and had served in the IDF reserves during the ongoing war in Gaza. IDF Chief of Staff Halevi visited the site of the attack and vowed to catch the gunman.
אנחנו נגיע אליהם, נמשיך להילחם בטרור, עם הצער הגדול על כל קורבן מהטרור הזה, רק נתחזק בלחימה בטרור.
A large number of troops are involved in the manhunt for the gunman. Roads have been blocked and searches are underway in nearby Arab towns.
Amid global pressure to end the Gaza conflict and pursue ceasefire talks, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told Time magazine last week that he remains steadfast in his commitment to continue the fight. We have with us Eric Cortellessa, the journalist from Time who conducted the interview. Welcome, Eric.
It's good to be with you. Thank you.
Now, despite pressure from global leaders to end the Gaza conflict and ceasefire hostage talks that are going to take place at the end of the week, Netanyahu appears committed to continuing the fight. If this hostage deal falls through, how do you think this will impact Israel's long-term security and relationships with key allies like the U.S.?
Well, I think it will undermine Israel's credibility. I think it really sort of depends how things shake out. Hamas might have given Israel some cover by saying it wouldn't participate in the hostage ceasefire negotiations on August 15th. But ultimately, most of the world is going to hold Israel responsible if it does not come forward with this deal to bring home the returning hostages and end the fighting. The conflict in Gaza has already resulted in 40,000 casualties, and the world is inflamed over it and wants it to end. And if Israel continues to prolong the fight, that is only going to hurt its reputation abroad.
Now, despite a majority of Israelis believing that Netanyahu should step down, polls show him leading potential rivals at the moment. You've interviewed a lot of leaders and covered politics for quite a while. What does this disconnect tell us about Israeli political culture and Netanyahu's influence?
Well, I think it shows that Netanyahu is still, a very gifted politician. He has incredible resilience and staying power in Israel, despite the fact that he is very unpopular, despite the fact that he is now riven with unavoidable failures. And I think it shows some of the limitations of the parliamentary, purely proportional representative parliamentary system, that he is able to still corral coalitions together and stay in power. And we see what that has cost him. And Israel with the latest government, because he had to bring in the parties headed by Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who have really handcuffed him with a number of key policy decisions.
Netanyahu claimed he controls Israel's policy, yet his coalition partners, of course, have starkly different views. Do you think his assurances about Saudi normalization are believable?
When it comes to Saudi normalization, I think it depends. I think the Saudis do have a genuine desire to have a normalization deal with Israel. I think Israel has a genuine desire to have a normalization deal with Saudi Arabia. I think the United States would like to see this agreement go forward. The Saudis have an issue with their street. They have an issue with the fact that they want to see a Palestinian state emerge, or they at least want to see an Israeli government take good faith steps toward a Palestinian state. So I think, it's certainly not off the table in the long run. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon, but we'll have to see how things shake out with the war and how Israel proceeds with trying to resolve its very long dispute with the Palestinians once the fighting comes to a halt.
Now, what is your key takeaway from your interview with the Prime Minister? What message did you hope to leave the Israeli and Jewish public after you published your story?
I think the biggest takeaway was that, Netanyahu refuses to take responsibility for what happened on October 7th. He refuses to take responsibility for all of the decisions he made around Israel vulnerable. And in the wake of this, he really is not willing to even tell the truth when people have to ask him tough questions. I asked him a number of questions. A lot of times he gave me false answers that simply weren't true. And, there's a reason why he doesn't do interviews with Israeli journalists. He hasn't done a real interview with Israeli journalists since October 7th because he's unwilling to face the music from his own people about the precarious situation he put them in. And so I think that the interview really paints a devastating portrait of a leader who refuses to take responsibility for his own failures.
All right, Eric Cortellessa, thank you for joining us. We are out of time, so we will be moving to the next story with Israel on the brink, of course, of a possible regional war. There really is no time more crucial than now to show your support for the IDF. And Nechama and Hatzalah for Israel work to do just that. Nechama and Hatzalah for Israel is an organization that's dedicated to supporting IDF soldiers and, of course, Israeli security forces by providing essential combat kits, mental health support, and more. The group focuses on enhancing the well-being and effectiveness of those who are on the front lines, aiming to ensure that they have all the necessary resources to protect Israel. And here now with me in studio is their co-founder, Shmulik Moskowitz. Shmulik, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start by asking you, how did you manage to mobilize resources and connections so quickly after this war broke out?
Actually, the same evening, in the 7th of October, we talked together, and at the 8th of October, we already established our operation. We locate a building in Ramat Gan. We managed to establish the operation with volunteers and a lot of support from all around the world, US, England, France, Brazil, Mexico, all around the world support us. We managed to purchase a lot of equipment for the soldiers and a lot of donation from the people and the neighborhood around in Ramat Gan help us to provide for all the population that had to flee from Gaza Strip area.
Absolutely. Can you share a little bit more about the impact of Nechama and Hatzalah and the Rescue Command Center's initiative? There's, of course, a medical equipment lending center. You also have the rapid response team in Kiryat Shmone on the northern border. How do you measure success on these fronts?
The measure of success is that we have, in each point that we decide to have, we have a team with the proper equipment to mobilize and react to in case of an emergency. For example, just from this week, in Majlis Sams, we had a donation from Alessandra and Azuri Safra from Brazil. Alessandra came to here and we introduced her to the Majlis Sam community, and they donate a bulletproof vest and helmets, and we had a large ceremony on Friday. They donate 12 vests and helmets in memory of the 12 kids that got killed.
Majd al-Shams, the location in which Hezbollah recently struck a rocket. Amazing work that you're doing there after a terrible tragedy. I want to ask you, given your experience, extensive experience in emergency medicine and, of course, collaboration with other organizations, how do you see the role of this organization and the Rescue Command Center evolving in the future?
I think I have a lot of respect for all the forces, but in the end, there are a lot of people and friends and units in the army that fall between the chairs, like what we say in Israel, that they missed. They have proper equipment to some units get like a little bit less or leftover sometimes. And that's how we think that we making a difference, because we're thinking also on the little soldier that have the post and spend a lot of time in the field, and sometimes we just bring like a little bit of ice cream and a hot meal, like a sandwich with schnitzel to him, to see that we're still thinking about him, even if it's like 9 months. A lot of people like move along, the world move along a little bit. We still showing that we think about every soldier, every brother that in field, or every family that still doesn't have enough furniture to the new home that they need to build. So this is the little things, I think, and free love, I don't know how to say it, with like tonight evening is then the 9 of Av. Mm-hmm. And I think it's not free love, but to be responsible for each other.
Yes.
Even if it's somebody that's not like very important or in the focus, like even in people in the sideline of the community, the sideline of Israel, to think about and help them.
Absolutely.
Even if it's small things.
Absolutely. You know, you guys had this amazing ice cream truck initiative. You also did a project that touched a lot of hearts and minds when it comes to dealing with the akets, the dogs that are working with the IDF. I wanted to ask you what other projects you're planning in the future.
We have so many projects. One of the projects now we're working on furniture, as I said, to home. A lot of people, like almost 80,000 people, a lot of families had to live at the north. We don't know where they're coming back. They live in hotels. And now it's a phase that they're going from the hotel to find them home, even if it's temporary home. And we're thinking how to bring them furniture and how to make them an easy landing where they need to stay until I hope the situation in the north will be better. This is one project. We have the ice cream car that we're going around, hot meal for soldiers inside Gaza, sandwich with schnitzels, like remember from home, remember the mother food, the food from mom. Inside Gaza, it's another project. We have so many ideas, and we need a lot of support from our donation to keep our working going.
Absolutely. Well, I want to congratulate you on the important work that you're doing supporting Israel, and please keep up the good work. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you very much.
With anticipation ongoing for an Iranian retaliation and increasing fears of an all-out regional war, airlines continue to halt their flights to and from Israel. ILTV's Ariel Elahiani has more.
Yes, Emily. So we are continuing to see a flood of airlines cancelling their flights to and from Israel and actually extending the suspension period from what was a few days to now a good few weeks, including Air India, which has now suspended its flights until the end of October due to fears of an all-out regional war. This is obviously posing a very complicated situation, both for Israelis outside of Israel who need to get home and for tourists in Israel now who need to get home.
Absolutely not. I'm not scared. I'm actually in Tel Aviv and so beautiful, so nice. So no, people are not scared.
When I was in Paris, I was scared to come here, but now in Tel Aviv, we didn't sense anything.
For truth, I'm not scared about that attack. I have a lot of emunah, bitachon, so we are not scared about everything.
You worried that your flight home will be cancelled?
Yeah, that's a problem. My parents are coming tonight.
I'm proud to be Israelis. I'm not friend about Israel, about Iranian. Iranian, be afraid about Israel and be strong. Am Israel Chai.
Well, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of 23 degrees Celsius or 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Tomorrow, sunny skies and hot weather are expected, as temperatures should reach highs of 34 degrees Celsius or 94 degrees Fahrenheit and remain consistent over the weekend. That's a wrap for today's news. For all the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.